Stephan, you're the founder and you lead this organization, Genesis. What is the purpose and vision?
So Genesis comes from a country in Africa, which is a young world country with a very, very extreme set of challenges, some of which have been overcome, some of which we are still overcoming. So, the very DNA of Genesis is really about how countries with young populations can succeed at becoming wealthier, becoming more successful, becoming more effective. And so we do that work across many countries. We've worked in more than 100 countries, and our purpose is really to help those young societies prosper in a very complex world.
You've described the promise and potential of Africa, and you've been involved with this for 30 years, but so often Africa fails to deliver on that promise. You say you've got the keys to help unlock it, but that obviously hasn't happened.
So the first thing to be said is Africa is, of course, not just one thing. And there's been quite a diversity of performance and success across many countries. And there's been, standout successes in different areas, some of them economic, some of them business, but many of them social, changes that we never thought would take place. So there are things to look at and to emulate. I think that's the first thing. Why as a whole, though, has Africa not succeeded in the way that it should have? Some of those reasons run very deep. Some of them are about history. Some of them might be about the endowments that countries have. But really, I think the major factor has been leadership and the ability of leadership to grasp a complex and difficult situation and make the best of it. And in doing that, we must take account of what the rest of the world has brought to Africa. And the short answer is a lot. We estimate perhaps as much as $4 trillion over the last 40 years, if not more. Lots of technology, market access, lots of support. And yet, there has been the sense that Africa hasn't really come up to the level where it should be. And we believe the reason for that is that African societies need to take more accountability and need, with the self-same resources, to map out a path for themselves that's going to be more fit for purpose. And we've seen that happen, and we've helped countries do that in a number of settings.
Okay, well, help me understand what you actually do.
Yeah. So we work with people who have resources. They have power, political power. They might have money. They might have market position or technology, and we help them to use that to the advantage of the societies in which they work. So we would work with a government to say, how do we solve your housing problem? How do we ensure that at the moment, maybe 1 in 3 4-year-olds get early childhood education in your country? How can we double or triple that? So that it becomes a springboard for success for your entire population.
But if I'm a government in Africa and I'm thinking about education or housing, why do I need to come to you? What is the expertise, the track record? Why don't I already know that, or my civil servants already know that?
Well, we've worked in more than 100 countries. We've done this work over 30 years, and we've had significant successes in doing this from the ground up type of reform that ultimately changes the performance of entire systems. So one example of that would be in the work that we've done in the last 5 years with the Gates Foundation, which has helped to bring down AIDS, HIV infection rates markedly in a whole host of countries, actually as many as 15 across Africa, simply by focusing on learning between the countries in which we work. So what we bring is a cross-country perspective, and that's not limited to Africa. We do work in Central Asia, we do work in South Asia, we've done work in East Asia. And all of these countries with young populations face problems that are different but similar. Actually, we believe there are 5 things that all of these countries are going through right now. The potential for cross-country learning is incredible, and we've realized that. And it's that combination of cross-country learning, but really rooting that in the reality and in the political energy of a particular place.
Okay, but just to be clear where you fit in the ecosystem, I mean, you're commercial guns for hire.
Yeah.
You're not a philanthropic organisation or a foundation, are you?
No, so we are a for-profit company, but we're a very unusual for-profit company because the promise that we make is impact. That's what we promise our clients, and that's what we promise the societies in which we work. So quite often, Stephen, we would go into a situation where we say, you know what, in digital livelihoods, cross-border digital services in Kenya, we can create 1 million jobs. And we are going to start working at that right now. And we've done so for the last 2 years. We've brought on board the government. We've brought on board key international players. We work with entities that provide the skilling. And so that's unusual. You know, that's unusual for a for-profit company.
And what's been your biggest success?
I think our biggest success has probably been in the field of HIV and helping entire societies improve their protection against this scourge. I think that's been our biggest success. But we've also had, I think, market successes in areas such as bringing down the cost of communications to entire societies, broadening access to broadband internet services, helping fix important parts of public policy that could bring about growth. So there's been a lot.
What's the significance of the moment now? We're here in Q2 of 2025. USAID has withdrawn. I mean, there is a massive crisis in development and aid work. Are you attempting to fill that gap?
Yeah, so we believe that this moment is the end of an entire epoch that really started in the early 1960s when all of these northern countries started to provide different aid programs. That's where that multi-trillion-dollar number comes from. But it's just come to an end. Perhaps not completely, but largely, because it's not only the US, but also many other countries that for geopolitical reasons of aging, are not going to spend that money in the developing world anymore. And why is that the end of an epoch? Because now it means there has to be a shift of accountability to those countries. And we think there's a number of those countries that can take up that mantle and really succeed. But it means they have to work differently. They have to plan differently. They've got to be more strategic. They've got to be more selective, more realistic, and they've got to work effectively to get everything they need from the rest of the world. Is it capital? Is it technology? Is it market access? That's where we come in. The role that we play is to help countries take over that mantle of responsibility and then work in an effective way that we've seen work in many other countries that we think can also work in a lot of these countries with young populations.
Okay, I think you described that approach as an inside-out way of doing things. Is that a philosophy? Is that if you like, a piece of IP that you bring to this endeavour? And explain to me how this works, and also the historic transitions that you talk about.
Yeah. So Inside Out is a philosophy and a methodology. It's a philosophy that says that ultimately countries develop because they want to develop, and they set the agenda, and they then make themselves attractive enough for others to come in and assist. And that is the story of Korea, China, Japan, Germany. You know, there's an endless list of successes. So it's certainly a philosophy, but it's also a method, because it means you sit down with the key power holders in that country, and you're not naive about that. And you figure out, what is it that you share and we share that's socially valuable, that we can help you with. And then we devise an initial understanding of where the real opportunity lies. We help to build a coalition for change. We help to design, together with those coalition partners, something that will generally take hold in that country. And then we crowd in financial and other resources from the rest of the world. And we sometimes do that on the same theme across a number of countries so that they can learn from each other.
Now, you're the author of a phrase, the young world, talking about the potential and the future for the African continent. Explain to us what the young world is.
Well, firstly, the young world is not the aging world. You know, if you look at virtually the entire Northern Hemisphere, absent perhaps South Asia, you see countries where their fertility rates at the moment are anywhere between a quarter and half below what's required for replacement. That means that these societies are growing older and they've got far smaller cohorts of young people. So where are the young people of the world? They're in this other set of countries that forms a crescent through Africa, the Middle East, South Asia, Southeast Asia. This is a contiguous group of countries that have about 4.4 billion people. But much more importantly, 3 out of every 4 children born today, whilst we were talking, are born in the young world. That's where the future of humanity is going to be, in the very direct sense of that's where the people will be. And with the people comes economic activity, creativity, expansion, but also risk. So that's the young world in which we operate. Young world countries are incredibly diverse. They all interestingly face a similar set of problems. And we've identified 4 or 5 of them. Perhaps not even problems, more challenges or opportunities.
I mean, finally, we're sitting in London today having this conversation. When you look at the African continent, the demographic, socioeconomic challenges facing that continent, not least the democratic deficit, gives one huge cause for concern. Are you an optimist?
Yes, I'm an optimist in the sense that I've seen society succeed against all of those odds. And I'm an optimist that I know that in Africa today, there's more leaders, more young people, more capability, more realism, more internationalism than there's ever been. And I think in certain places you find a critical mass that one can latch onto, work with, and those will succeed beyond their expectations. But it will be a mixed picture. It will be a mixed picture. There will be countries that do much better. There will be countries that languish. And the real trick is to identify those opportunities where you can move things forward using the tremendous capabilities that the world has in terms of in particular, capital and technology now. And we're seeing that happen before our eyes.
Okay. Stephan, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.